This video will explain how to set up and demonstrate the Oberheim cyclone. Setting up the cyclone is very simple. Connect the MIDI in of the cyclone to the MIDI out of the master controller keyboard, and connect the MIDI out of the cyclone to the slave voicing instrument, which might be the controller keyboard or it might be a rack mount module. If it's the same as the controller keyboard, make sure to turn local control off on the controller keyboard. Next, connect a audio out from the pedal 1 jack using a standard audio cable to the mixer in order to have a metronome click available when doing sequence type recording. And if you have momentary pedals, hook them into the remaining 3 pedal slots, 2, 3, and 4, and use those as we'll describe later. If you only have one pedal, hook it up to the 4th slot for a tempo tap. We'll get into those later. Now you're ready for the power on sequence, which is accomplished by as follows. First, turn on your master-slave unit, your master controller and the slave voice units. If they're the same one, it's okay. Make sure that everything is on channel 1 because all of the factory presets are set up to work on basic channel 1. After the master and the slave are both on, then turn on the cyclone by flipping the micro switch at the rear to the up position. This brings the cyclone on as a normal power on. However, what we recommend is that you bring the cyclone on by performing a hard reset, which is accomplished by holding the enter button while you turn the power on. You notice in this mode you come up with 2 dashes displayed, and that indicates that the cyclone is disabled and simply acts as a software through, passing all of the MIDI information through without alteration. To get out of bypass mode, simply press the enable button and you'll see the current selection of program 0 indicated in the display. To change programs, simply use the arrow keys until you get to the program that you desire, and then press the enter button again. Subsequent presses of the enter button take you back to the disabled mode again. As you can see, you can select at will as many times as you like, and extra presses of the enable button simply toggle between that mode. We'll start with program 0 and explain each of the 16 factory presets in order. Program 0 is a classic arpeggiation program that performs just like the arpeggiator on synthesizers of yesterday and today. Simply holding keys down performs an arpeggiation in up-down order as long as you hold the keys down. Holding a single key simply repeats that key. You can change chords on the fly. And so on. If you have your sustain pedal hooked up to your master controller, you can use it to hold the notes on the keyboard. Now when I press the pedal, I can take my hand off and the arpeggiation continues. Another way to do this is by using the record hold function, which is on the record hold button in play mode. Simply press that button, it will begin flashing to indicate record ready, and at this point every note you play will be input into the memory of the cyclone. When I'm done entering notes, I can hit the button, the arpeggiation will continue, and I can play along with it on the keyboard. To stop the playback, simply press the clone button. Now that that information is in the memory of the cyclone, we can do what's called an a manual transpose, by pressing both the manual control button and the record hold button. Notice they both come on full. Then, when I play notes in the lower octave of the keyboard, hear how the entire chord, which is in the memory of the cyclone, is transposed and played back. We can also do both at once, play both transpose and play back. And so on. One of the most exciting features of the cyclone is the ability to control the tempo of the playback from a pedal. In this case, pedal 4, which we hooked up earlier, will control the playback by tapping in quarter notes, at least 3, to establish the tempo. Notice how the arpeggiation is playing back eighth notes, so we're basically tapping in every other note for the tempo here. Notice how I ended by pressing the cycle button, which follows the pattern through to the end and then automatically disables the cloning function. Next we'll move on to program 1. Note that all of the functions I described for program 0 will be in effect for the remainder of the programs. The ability to record, use the manual control to activate a control region on the lower portion of the keyboard, and the cycle button, as well as the tempo tap, are all in effect for all of the 16 factory programs. Program 1 is the same as program 0, except the order that is played back is the order in which you put the notes in, and also it transposes by octaves. Notice if I just play one note, it goes through a cyclic transpose of one octave up, then one octave down in a repetitive manner. If you play more than one note, the order is the order in which you play them, rather than strictly in ascending or descending note order. So if I play C, E, G, then E, that's different from playing G, then C, then E. And you can play with that quite a while and get a lot of different patterns just with that effect. For example, if we hit G, then E flat, then B flat, then C, and hold it with the sustain pedal, this allows me to demonstrate the ability to change orders on the fly. Currently we're in receive forward order by simply using the mode button to go to edit mode, and then using the clone button until the LED is next to the order button, order display. You'll see that you can select from the other types of orders which are available. Receive forward is the default for program 1. We can change to receive backwards, or forwards and backwards. Or we can go back to the up order. Or down order. up and down order, or to random order.
In random, it's taking the list of notes that are being held and playing them in a random order, not in the order played or up or down. It's just randomly playing the notes.
Right, it's still using the same notes, but the order is random.
So what are your choices you have? Random?
Random, down and up and down, just up, backwards and forwards.
And backwards and forwards, it has to do with when you play, what notes, the order you played the notes.
Right, it's the reverse order from which you put them in, and then the forward order, as opposed to forward and then backward, or just the receive backward order, or just the receive forward order.
Go back to receive forward now. Yeah, that's what you actually had.
Now we'll go on to program 2. We turn to play mode by hitting the mode button, then use the arrow key and hit the enter key, and we're in program 2. Program 2 is the same as program 1, except it plays 2 notes at a time. And the 2 notes that it plays are the first 2 in order, then the second 2 in order, etc., since it's still in receive forward order. So if we play those 2 notes, you'll hear how it plays them as a pair at each of the octave transposes. And if we play 2 more notes, it treats those also as a group. Now I'll hold those with the sustain pedal and demonstrate how the CYCLONE groups notes together using the mode parameter. Again, hit the mode switch to go to edit mode, then hit the clone switch until the LED is aligned with the mode parameter. And here you'll see that it displays F2, which stands for fixed 2. It's playing 2 notes at a time. You can also select 3 notes at a time, or 4 notes at a time, which affects how fast it goes through the auto transpose. You can also select a proportional number, which means it divides the numbers of notes by 2, or divide the number of notes by 3. Since we have 4 notes, it only plays 1 note at a time under P4. And we also have available the random modes. Here it's random 2, which means it'll play either 1 or 2 notes at a time randomly. Again, picking from the same notes that we held down, but how many it plays at a time is a random number between 1 and 2, or perhaps between 1 and 3, or between 1 and 4, and so on up to 8 if we had 8 notes held. It will actually repeat some of the notes to create automatic doubles in this mode. Next we'll move on to program 3. Program 3 is identical to program 1, except that it allows you to perform 2 arpeggiations simultaneously from the keyboard by splitting the keyboard at middle C. For example, I can still play just as I would in program 1, but then I can also perform an independent arpeggiation in the lower register. Is an auto-doubled arpeggiation, which means that for every note you play, the CYCLONE will arpeggiate that note plus a note which is an octave below and another note which is a fifth above the note played. So for example, you can hear how there's actually a 3-note chord being played at each of those points. Let me slow it down so you can hear it better. If you play more notes, it actually goes through and